in with Casper Consulting live Q&A. I've been getting a lot of questions about how to get into acting and just anything within the film industry. So I thought, what would be best way to do it? Let's bring in a director. I'm actually working with this director. He's a director, writer, and entrepreneur. I'm working with this director on our feature film, Paragenics Shadow of the Mind. And not only will I be playing a role in it, I will also be this music supervisor and we'll have a soundtrack and it's going to be some fun stuff. So without further ado, Clinton Robinson, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Like I just said, I got back into town a couple hours ago from shooting an episode of Forged in Fire, episode 813, season 8, episode 13. If everybody wants to check that out, in like 4 months when it comes out. I'm really happy you're having me on here, man. It's really awesome.
No, 100%. I appreciate you for coming on, man. We have a lot of good conversations just from building up
Oh yeah.
for this feature film. So I figured let's get you on here and let's pick your brain a little bit.
All right,
Let's
take
just keep
away.
let's keep it simple and basic. How did you get into directing?
Well, I guess the bug started when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I think I say a different age every time I'm on here, but it's that on a podcast. It's between that 5 to 8 range. You can't really remember exactly.
Yeah.
But I remember watching The Empire Strikes Back way back on VHS. And I think I wore that tape out eventually. But for some reason, that movie just got me. Just the way that the miniature work on the snow planet Hoth was, like just the sprawling landscapes, the dialogue, the character building and world building, and that specific movie for some reason got me. And then later on, as a teenager, watching Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino really like sparked that. Like, I guess George Lucas sparked the idea of creativity, but Quentin Tarantino sparked the idea of making film specifically. And then when I got in high school, my high school, and I found out that this is like a weird thing, had a film and television productions class.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that. I ended up getting 7 credits in that out of my 4 years in high school. So I spent a lot of time in that class and just learning camera work, angles, editing. My teacher actually ended up becoming like a mentor to me, teaching me writing, directing, proper terminology. Like every couple of weeks, he'd give me like an obscure old classic film to watch and be like, go watch this and write a report. And it wasn't even for a grade. And I still did that. I did that more than I actually did the homework I was supposed to for like English.
That's what happens when you're in love with something.
But I'm still in contact with this teacher to this day, Brian Boughton. Like I have him review some ideas, like my log lines and stuff, before I like work on the script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's very influential, and he actually senior year, he's like, let's make a movie. So we founded a club for the school. I don't even know if it's around. I think it lasted like 2 years after I graduated. Like he basically formed a club in school just for me to make a student film.
Oh, that's dope.
He walked me through the whole script writing process. He walked me through casting. We actually had open casting in our high school, which, like, if you think there's some bad actors now, try pulling from actors in just your little high school.
Right. And
Had
what high
to,
school did you go to?
Port Charlotte High School down in Port Charlotte, Florida.
Oh, I did not know that. I did
Yeah,
not know you were from Florida.
yeah. I was born in Lincoln. Mom moved to Florida. Lived in Florida. Moved back up here to be around my dad. Uh,
Well,
yeah.
well.
Well, okay. But yeah, that's how I got into it. My teacher just basically started me from start to finish on a film all the way to editing. We never took it to festivals just because the school wouldn't give rights for certain reasons.
Mhm.
So it kind of just died. And then I graduated high school and people were just like, have a real job. So I went and did the whole real job thing for a while until last year when I was like, screw this real job. I'm going to, found my own company, which I did, R&R Film Productions LLC. And here I am 6 movies later doing this full time. So I feel like I shouldn't have listened to people and just went and chased my dreams right away. But I got that real world experience, and I know this is what I want to do for sure. So
I agree. I think I'm a strong believer in what's meant will be. So sometimes the path that you thought you were supposed to take isn't the path you were supposed to take, because look where you're at now. Who knows if you would have started out right there at 18 and tried to chase it and quote unquote failed, you may have given up because wherever your mental ability was at. So I
yeah,
definitely think you chose the right path. I'm very gracious to have you on here and gracious to be able to work with you. So definitely
yeah,
keep
for
doing
sure.
that. So what do you think? So what do you think is the biggest surprise you've gotten? One positive and one negative. Biggest surprise you've gotten as being a director. And as you answer that, I'm about to grab my laptop, so I'm listening.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I guess we'll start with the positive, so people don't think I'm always thinking negatively. Positively, I've found that specifically in this area, because I'm Springfield, Central Illinois, the community is actually really tight knit and like actually really supportive and talented, like way more talented than you would think from like middle of cornfield Illinois.
Right.
So like personally, just from conversations, I work a lot with Star Power Films. Ruben Ramirez, Mario Cannon,
Yeah.
Terry Weatherly, those people, and then the people out of Vault 309, Dan Johnson and all them. Like I feel
Mhm.
like between our 3 companies, and I don't really work with Geo much, but Geo is another good director. Like
Yeah, he's
we just
dope.
haven't had the chance to cross paths yet. Directors don't really get to work together a lot. So when we do, like Dan's last film had like 6 directors on set just because we were all like, yeah, I want to help you.
Oh
So,
God.
um, and oddly enough, it wasn't too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. Like me and Gio, we were there as like, PAs or whatever. So we knew,
You
we were
played your
just there.
role.
Yeah, we were there to just be like almost like advisors. Like, hey, like I remember one scene the lighting was wrong, so I had to be like, hey, Dan, don't want to be that guy, but that take's unusable, um, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
I've just found it's overly talented, way beyond what it should be around here. Um, Now for the negative, which I don't like to talk about much, but
Right. But I'm
you
testing
all, you always hear that the industry's cutthroat. Um, and I've kind of been blessed that I have an ability to read people when I meet them if they'd be good to work with me or not.
you. Yeah.
But there are definitely those, I wouldn't call them like backstabbers, but people that just are unprofessional. We'll call them unprofessional. They like to talk bad about people behind their backs, or they don't show up to set, or things like that.
Yeah.
And I get that people want it to be a fully creative experience, but there's money involved and people's time's involved. So you just got to respect
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And I won't talk anymore on that because I want to be a positive person.
Yeah. And to piggyback off what you're saying with the positive, it's not, I don't know if it's like necessarily should be surprising, because it's just like, but it is very surprising when you are in Central Illinois, because you don't really know that there's an industry there. We don't have, a lot of people don't know we have an industry within the music and within acting and film, but it's there. It's just, it's growing and it's different, and it's just like,
Yeah.
well, it's kind of like waiting for that one person to do something great and people recognize and to say, hey, they're from Central Illinois.
Oh
But
yeah. It's kind of like futuristic. He's from Central Illinois, so it kind of created that whole idea of the rap scene being from Cornfield, Illinois. You know what I mean?
right. But see, what about with him is just like he moved to Arizona, so it was
Yeah.
like
He's
they don't.
Arizona,
Yeah,
not
no, everyone
Central
sees
Illinois.
them as that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like we need that homebred. But the thing about the issue with Central Illinois is that we don't have the business there. So
It's,
when you don't have the business to help grow your artists and your creatives, there's nothing you can do. So like I think that what you're doing as a director is something to help grow the industry, because there's now there, if there are actors who've been out acted in a high school, you know,
Yeah.
theater or whatever, like wow, there's actually opportunity out here to get in the actual movie, and you
Yeah.
guys aren't just doing stuff like we're talking big budget. We don't have to talk numbers here, but
It's
I
big
do.
budget for small time filmmakers. Ruben and I are like, not only are we pushing out big projects, we're pushing out a lot of big projects. Like they just got done with Black 2 weeks ago, and they already have a casting call for another project to be shot in two
Yeah, I
weeks.
seen
You know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, and with my company as well. Like, yeah, we're really focusing on Shadow of the Mind, but there's short films in between all of our features, and like, we're going and working on other production company stuff just to spread word of our names. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And a lot of people just want to start off in the industry and have there already be something built. And that's why people only know of LA or Chicago or Atlanta or New York or Toronto.
yeah,
Those industries grew because somebody stuck the flag in the ground and was like, "Hey, we're gonna make movies here." You know what I mean?
yeah.
So maybe I won't be the person that puts it on the map, but I might be the person that starts that fire to get it put on the map. You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, and the thing is too, there's been people working for so long, like for years, you know what I mean, that have been, I mean, you're the number one person that you really hear about from Central Illinois within entertainment is Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And he, I mean, that was what, the 70s, you know what I mean?
A
Like that
long
was
time ago.
a long time ago, right? 70s, 80s, you know what I'm saying? So like that was a long time ago where we haven't really had that person that I personally know. I could be wrong, so don't quote me, but we haven't really had that person that I know of that's been left Peoria, and still had that name of like, oh yeah, he's from Peoria, like you know,
Yep.
because like
I
Richard
I
Pryor's one
can't
of the
think
greatest
of
of all
any.
time.
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Nobody
Yeah,
that would be a household name. You know, it might be like a D-lister or something like that. Which
right.
I mean, that's still making it. If somebody can think of your name, that's making it. But
Yeah,
it's definitely something that I know I talk with a lot about, like everybody I work with, including you. You know, we've talked about it over Messenger, talking about the soundtrack or other projects, or just like shooting the shit. Am I allowed to curse?
yeah. Hey man, yeah.
Okay. I just didn't want to be like, oh, well, that's unusable.
No,
Um,
you're good.
but you know, it's definitely something I want, and that's why I try to use like in Shadow of the Mind. I think 85% of that team is Illinois based, 70% of it Central Illinois based. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
at least was born in Central Illinois and might now live in Chicago, which is your
yeah.
case. You were born in your home's Peoria, but you live in Chicago
Right.
now. And I think that's important. One, on a business sense because tax reasons and write-off purposes, but got to have that businessman mindset.
Yeah.
um, but also because it's like, hey, look, we have all of this talent just sitting here and waiting to work. Like wardrobe designer Courtney Rainier, she worked on 2 seasons of House of Cards and the It remake,
Oh, nice.
and
Oh, yeah, no, you told me that, but
yeah,
still.
yeah, and she lives in Springfield. Like, what?
Right.
You know, I myself, now that I'm like growing, I have all these projects I've worked on. I am now on the payroll of History Channel, and I
Oh,
have,
no.
yeah. Now they're just gonna call me whenever they have more positions, which is awesome.
Congrats.
Um, Thank you. I appreciate that. I stumbled into that. That was completely accident. Somebody just said, "Hey, PA, 5 days, 180 a day." I was like, "I'll take it. I don't care what the project is." And here I am working for History Channel.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Before I continue, just like everybody listening, like the big thing about this industry is just taking chances. You never know what it's going to be.
Agreed.
You know, I was a nobody when I did my first short film last year, and all these actors took a chance on me, and now I'm getting them paid jobs. Like nobody knew I was going to be. I'm going to call myself a success, because I kind of am. At least in my eyes. I don't care what anybody else thinks.
That's what's, hey, but I'm gonna stop you there. That's what's important because You have your own creation of a measure of success, and if you have achieved it and you continue to achieve it, you're okay. You can't really go off of what others think is successful, because if that's the case, if you're not making $1 million, or if you're
Yeah,
not, that's what people think is success. So,
exactly.
again, kudos to you, and remember, like, what you said, like, your success is within self.
Yeah,
So good.
and that's how I quantify it. Is if I can do this full time and I'm happy with it, that's successful to me. I don't care if I'm making 20K a year or a million. Like, I'm happy and I'm doing what I love.
100%.
And I'm sure you feel the same way with your stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's the same,
Uh,
man. It's definitely the same.
but what I was saying is, like, in now I'm a successful film director in this market, and I'm able to do this full time. I got Courtney Rainier able to do this full time working with me, and I'm getting all these other people paid jobs, or even if they're like not paid, they're like major speaking roles. They're major this when they started with me, they either had never acted before, they'd never been in a film before, or done anything on a film before.
Right.
And that's what you have to do in this industry, is just jump in any industry. Like, if you're a small business owner, if you're just like trying to do something, just make that leap of faith. You never know what you're going to land into. So what if it fails? You tried.
Yeah.
And there are so many people in this world that don't try, that don't even attempt to do their dreams, and that's how they end up becoming old and bitter and thinking what if all the time. You
Yeah.
don't want to be that. And I think our generation is the generation where all of us are trying. All of us are making that jump or wanting to make that jump. It's scary. It's horrifying. Like, when I went into the casting process for the scratching, I was horrified. I thought I had imposter syndrome big time. I was like, all these people know more than me. They're going to know I'm a fake. None of them knew I was a first time film director. They thought I'd done it before just because confidence.
Right. Right. Right.
Even though on the inside I was like, like
Yeah.
outwardly confident. um, when I got on set, I had spent the 3 days prior to that just watching videos about how to be a director, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And after those videos, I still had no idea what I was doing. I got on set, knew what I was doing. You just have to be confident in it. And you got
Yeah.
to take that chance. You got to take that risk. Fake it till you make it. Like, honestly, that's what a lot of this industry is. You don't need film school to make a movie. You don't need a bunch of experience to make a movie. Just go make a movie. Well, I mean, other businesses, you do have to have some sort of business model and stuff like that. You don't just go open a grocery store. But go make that first step to opening that grocery store. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's, I forgot what the question was, but that's
It's
that
okay.
on that one.
No, it's okay. I believe when you say fake it till you make it, I think that it's a very cliche line. I think there's deeper meaning. You have to really dig
There's a
into it.
lot deeper meaning to
Because
it,
it
but
doesn't
that's,
mean being like fake. It's just like, I
you
guess
need
what
to have a prior knowledge, prior something like an idea of what you're doing, but you don't have to. I'll go into what I meant by that.
yeah,
You
that's
don't
what
have to know 100% of the idea. Go in there knowing 70%, 80%. That small gap of 10, 20, 30% you don't know, you'll figure out on the job.
right.
And
I respect that
as
100%.
as a film director, and another film director told me this like a while ago, Demetrius Witherspoon. He told me, as a film director, it's your job to surround yourself with people that know more about their job than you do. So my cinematographer knows so much more than me about framing, about cameras, about lenses, about all that stuff. And same thing with my lighting people, my audio people, my actors, my script supervisor, wardrobe, special effects, editors, color graders. They all know leaps and bounds above me about their specific roles. But none of them can direct like I can, because they are so focused on all that technical stuff. My job is then able to be solely focused on the creativity,
Right.
about getting everything to fit the vision of the script. And I think that's an important distinction, and that's why, a lot of directors is, like that quote unquote fake it till you make it to begin with, because if you surround people that are better than you in their job, you're doing it right. Because I shouldn't have to know more than my cinematographer, because then I could just be my cinematographer. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that sometimes when they ask questions, sometimes I'll look at them and have to think for a second, because everybody, like cinematographers, will speak in that camera lingo, and sometimes I don't know exactly what they're talking about. And Derek Huey, the cinematographer on Paragenix, is the type of person that he'll see that dull look in my eyes and know that he has to dumb it down,
Right.
which I appreciate. Or like my wardrobe person, she'll say something super technical about wardrobe, which there's a lot of technical stuff about wardrobe. And I'll look at her and I'll be like, people language, please. You know,
Slow it
and
down.
yeah, and that's what I meant by fake it till you make it. You can fill those gaps in, and I've learned so much from this industry, from the people that work around me, that I feel like I do say I could be a cinematographer, because I've learned from my cinematographers. Now I can't be that $1,000 a day cinematographer like my cinematographer, but I can be a $400 a day cinematographer.
Right.
And that's another thing, is to know your worth in the industry.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was gonna ask you really when we think about the business side of the film industry. We could talk, we'll talk numbers in a sense of you don't actually have to put out the numbers, but really understanding how to price yourself as
yeah.
an actor, as a director, as whatever you decide to do within the industry. How do you feel like a person should price themselves?
It's a great question. We'll go with actors just because everybody knows SAG, AFTRA. Um, look at They have up on the SAG website. They have their high budget, low budget, extreme low budget. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And they'll put the pricings up there for the SAG qualified actors of that range. So have ultra low budget, extra, and you already know you're not SAG, so you're already going to be a little less quality than them. So let's say
Quote unquote.
SAG,
Quote
quote
unquote.
unquote, quote unquote. This doesn't mean you are. It just means according to whoever's looking at your resume, that's where
Right.
you're
Right.
at. And you have to think in that you could be a better actor than Johnny Depp, which I don't think you are, most likely. um,
Johnny's a beast.
most likely, again, throwing that out there, you might just be the next 20 Oscar winning actor listening or watching this. But hey, if you are, call me. um but you have to realize that if you are going into this, we'll assume you have zero set experience. First off, you're not going to get paid. You're not going to get paid for your first couple of gigs. Don't go in there expecting money. Don't go there expecting lines, unless you're just like a beast. Um, and even then, I'm saying you might get lines. You might not get paid. You might get like $50 or whatever.
Right.
But once you've gotten 5 or 6 credits, you know what I mean. You'll start to be able to understand what you bring to the table. You'll be able to understand your range. You'll be able to understand like so much more about yourself as an actor, because every set you're going to learn a lot. Even if you're just an extra that walks past a camera, you're going to see other people's acting. You're going to see what they can bring to the table. And once you get those credits, you'll be able to say, I think I'm worth 100 a day. Now, this is something a lot of people don't do. Stick to that. Stick to that in your negotiations. Don't falter when the person says, I don't think it's in the budget, because most of the time they'll be able to find a way to make it into the budget.
If they want
I
you
built I build budgets. I'm a director and a line producer and a producer and a casting director. I know that there is a way to finagle those budgets to make it work if I really want somebody.
right.
Because usually, at least this is on my budgets, usually I will budget like 10% into the miscellaneous fund for these instances.
Right. We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that and pulled the soundtrack, some of the soundtrack out of that. And so make that public knowledge as well. A lot of people don't do that. Like on my Facebook page, what I charge right now is on my Facebook page. What I charge right now is going to be on my website. And this makes it so people know when they're talking to you, this is how much you're worth, and how much you believe you're worth, and how much people that have hired you think you're worth.
Right.
And they
I
won't.
wonder. I think about that sometimes too because there's two ways to look at it. You know, you're a service, so when you go and you want to get, let's say, for example, you want to get your car washed, you know the price, you know
Right.
what you're paying. So it is nice to get that number when you're trying to get a service such as an actor, or director, or whatever. You want to know what you're paying, and then they don't have to like if they don't have to like make up a number. It's already set. But I
Yeah.
think that figure like you're right about trying to figure out like how to figure out your number is probably the hardest thing because
Yeah,
you're
because at
deciding to
that point,
value yourself. You're putting your value on yourself.
yeah, at that point, you're pricing yourself. You're saying this is how much I'm worth, which is weird to think about. But
It
like
is.
to me, as a director, I think I'm worth $400 a day. That's what it says on my page.
Right.
And I think I bring $400 a day worth of work to a set.
Right.
Actually, I go above and beyond most of the time because I'm not a control freak, but I like to make sure everything's 100%. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll step over what a director does is step into the line producer role a little bit or step into casting a little bit, but that's because I want to make sure my project is ready come time we touch set.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll go back to the actor. You think you're worth 100 a day. That's if you think about it, and we'll sit here, it's never an 8 hour day. So we'll say a 10 hour a day on set. That's $10 an hour.
Right.
You think you're worth $10 an hour. So you're worth above minimum wage, which is amazing. But maybe after a couple rolls, you think you're worth 150. You know what I mean? So you have to, I wouldn't say every 2 or 3 rolls because there's going to hit a point where your pricing is going to become stagnant for a while.
Yeah.
Like it might be a year or two before you feel like you can bump it past that 200 mark. But I really think it will take 6 rolls to figure out before you're like, I'm worth this much. And sometimes this is always a thing that I see on film groups and stuff. It's like you get in that situation where you're like, to the person, what's your budget? And they're like, what's your rate? What's your budget? What's your rate? It's
Yeah.
kind of like who's
A
going to
back
draw
and forth.
first.
Yeah.
And when you have that pricing, you'll throw it out there, and they'll know what your pricing is.
And most of the
Now,
time, it will, from my experience, most of
yeah,
the time, if they're interested in you, they'll be like, yeah, like that's cool. We got that in the budget. That's fine.
yeah,
If they weren't,
and most of the time, if they might say the position was 200 a day, so they'll give you that 200 a day because at the end of the day, they want you to enjoy working with them.
right.
Because at some point on set, if you say you're 100 and the other person's 200, everybody's going to turn on the production company. So they're going to pay you what you're worth. And you just opening with my day rate is at least 100 a day, and if it's over 75 miles, travel, hotel, and per diem or whatever. Which, by the way, work in travel and per diem if you are not if you're not comfortable going past 50 miles or 75 miles or 2 hours of drive time or whatever, work that in there so that you can get yourself compensated because that's a long distance.
Yeah.
And you're not guaranteed that this role is gonna be seen. You know what I mean? There's so many movies being made nowadays
That
that
put out.
yeah, you want to make sure you get as much as you can out of it, and you have to think of that business mindset. Like 60% art, 40% business.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at in it.
That's where you're at with it. I know, they say 80-20, but I think it's also the person sometimes
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you have to figure out what works for you. Like,
and that's
I don't
because I
know.
handle mostly the business side of stuff in a lot of productions. So I've started to get more of a business mindset. Like I've got a 9 film contract as a line producer. I have no creativity in that job.
Right.
It's just hiring and contracts and budgeting and paperwork and stuff like that. So I see a lot of the money side of things. And I'm a creative person. 60% creativity for me is like some people's 100%. So I can afford that. But I think it's important you understand your value in any aspect of this because at the end of the day, if you want to do this full time and this is your passion and not just like a hobby, the goal is to make enough money for you to do it full time.
Yes. I'll get back to what you're saying. Two things. One, Martin Davis said, "Don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. That's the fake it until you make it." I agree with that.
Exactly,
I agree
exactly.
with that. And then Jake Callahan said, "Coming from a photographer perspective, this is 100% relatable and informative." And I believe he was talking about the pricing and putting the pricing out there and letting people know your worth. Um,
Exactly, exactly, and that's exactly how it is. Like you have to. There's a lot of people out there that are going to try to want to cheat you at some level because there's people out there that they're out there for their production, they're out there for themselves. So you putting at least that minimum, you're guaranteeing no matter what contract you sign, you're going to get that minimum, and that's important. And I'll say another thing: a lot of people will tell you it's okay to go 50 up front, 50 afterwards. Don't do that unless you really believe in the person. Like Casper, if it was you and me, we know each other,
right,
so you know that I will not screw you over. But and that's more of a friend thing. If
right.
this is somebody you just met and 2 days in they're like 50 up front, 50 afterwards, just know if you say okay, most likely you're only getting that 50 up front. Now
Which
they
50.
might be that very good person that was just really rough, and you might get a check in the mail 2 months later for that extra 50%. But just know that you're only guaranteed that first 50.
You better have that contract.
Yeah,
If you're gonna do that, you better have a contract so that way you
a
know
legit contract,
a legit.
not just some text message thread or handshake or whatever. Like a legit contract with
It
both of
has to
your
be
signatures.
in writing. There's something in writing that says that that that's gonna happen. I was
X amount of time. Yep.
Yeah, and I had a couple episodes ago. I had an entertainment lawyer on here, and that was some of the things
Yeah,
we were
yeah, I
talking.
watched that.
Yeah, so that was some of the things we were talking about. Was just everyone doesn't necessarily can afford a lawyer, but making sure you having stuff written down will save you in this physical form, not
Yeah,
like a text thread.
it,
Although
text
you can have
threads
a contract,
they can work sometimes
but you're
depending.
better off. But you're better
Yeah,
off with that just cut and
and
dry.
it doesn't have to even be a legit piece of paper. It could be the back of this receipt, like 50 here, 50 here, sent no later than this, signature.
Yeah, super simple. As long as it's in writing with signatures, you're good to go.
Exactly.
Um,
Like I had an apartment lease that was like on the back of a like McDonald's receipt or something like that. Like it would hold up in court. Now, was it sketchy? Yes. Was
oh,
I
hella.
19 though?
Yeah,
So it made sense to me.
yeah, that's funny. So
Oh,
I
but
think I think you were saying so. I like the idea of talking about budgeting. I'm a stickler for budgeting when it comes to me being an artist and doing stuff for like my music and things of that nature. So I want to ask you, and I want you to break it down in percentages, not really necessarily numbers, like actual dollars, but how would you break down a percentage of your budget?
1 second. I actually have a Google Doc of that right here.
Oh well, man, there we go.
Yeah, it might sound like I was prepared, but it's just my paragenic shadow of the mind stuff.
Yeah, because they already have it ready. Because I
Yeah,
think that this is an important thing for filmmakers and anybody really. If you have a business, having a budget and trying to figure that out and learning how to manage that is extremely important.
yeah.
And
Okay, so I don't have that Google Doc, but let me see. All right, well, I'll just go off the top of my head. So,
you're smart, you got it.
what I do first before percentages is because each project's going to be different.
Right.
And that's just how film is. Like in Shadow of the Mind, this is a big set for an indie project. We have 50 people attached to it. So that's a big set, but you might get into small sets that have like 4-man crew, 3-man cast. So what I do is I'll first look at what we have going on. So in Shadow of the Mind, and this is just rough numbers, we have 17 cast members and like 23 crew members, and I'm not including Post in this. Post is its own part of the budget. So at that point, I'm looking. We have a larger production crew than cast,
Okay.
but lead roles in my mind are people that appear in over 40% of the script. they're going to get more money than people that appear in 30% of the script, who are going to get more money than the people that are bit rolls. You know what I mean? So I do a 2-3 tier stagger system, and usually it's only like 25 or $50 in between them. It's not major. So then you have to look through, and I'm actually teaching you guys not just budgeting, but I'm teaching you almost a script breakdown too. So double lesson. Then I go into how many days. So I figure out who's lead, who's secondary, who's bit. Then I go and I figure out how many days of shooting I'm going to do, which means I have to look at how many locations we have, how many pages of the script take place in that location, how many people are going to be on set, and then it gets into numbers, because you don't want to have to be like person A's on set day 1, 2, 5, 7, and 10, because you have to pay for their hotel, all of it.
Right.
So you have to figure out, all this, that, and the other. And then at that point, I get a rough estimate of what cast is going to cost me. And then, crew and all that. Crew's there the whole time. We already know that. It's not like I'm not going to have a cinematographer on day 5, because then I don't have a camera on day 5. Now, I might not need special effects on day 5, but I'll have them on set anyways, just in case. Who knows, we might get an extra, we might save a couple hours and be like, hey, let's go ahead and shoot this scene because you're here, and whatever. That never happens. You never have extra time.
Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't sound fair.
That's perfect world situation right there.
Perfect world.
You usually don't have enough time or enough money or enough people or enough anything. But so I'll figure out that cost, and then, like I said, I save 10% of the budget for miscellaneous, just in case reshoots happen. You have an idea, something breaks, you need to, you get rained out one day. You're not God, you can't control weather.
Right.
And this whole other mess. But I would usually say 10% of your budget should go for miscellaneous. I would say 20% for post. At least 20%. Now, if you're doing high fantasy, high sci-fi, super intense stuff, you might want 40% of your budget in post, because you're going to be doing a lot of green screen. Now, thankfully, I'm the type of writer that's not my thing. I'd say we're at 30%. I'd say probably 30 to 40% for cast. So that puts us at 60%. Throw in another 30% for crew. That's 90%. And that other 10% would have to go towards, I'd say, equipment rentals, locations, and stuff like that. Now, that's just rough. That's very rough because, like I said, every project is different.
Right.
I'd say cast is probably only 25% in this one, even though we have so many cast members. Yeah. And that's because wardrobe, crew members, post-production, because, like I said, soundtrack is part of post-production, but I really think an original soundtrack is going to be awesome for this particular project. And so far, I'm really happy with it. We already have one song.
Yeah, I forgot. I've been sending you some stuff and letting you hear some
after this.
Yeah, I do so much and I forget. I already sent them stuff.
Yeah.
We're too deep. Really, we got a couple songs potential. So I think it's gonna be dope. But
I'm excited for that. Very excited.
So what do you do about a marketing budget? I guess because I'm the marketing guy, so I'll just have to ask that question.
Marketing I include in post, because
that's what I thought, but
it's post-production process. It's one of those things that I could almost secure a second budget for, because by the time it's done editing and ready to get marketed, I could raise another, $5,000 or whatever. Now, if you're getting in, this is going into festivals and stuff, so it doesn't really need marketing as much as it does festival budget, which festivals cost money. I spent $500 on one short just going through festivals. And that's smaller festivals. You want to get into Sundance, that's $500 just for that one. and you
Yeah.
don't even know if you're gonna get in.
Yeah.
it's
So
like
you're,
it's
you're
like
paying 500 to submit.
yeah, that's 500 to submit. Um, great
Ouch.
times, great times,
But
and
if you
you
get
never
on there,
get
it's
on
worth
there.
it.
You get to say that you got into Sundance.
And the return can be even the return
That's
on investment can be great.
that's your marketing right there. You just say this was in Sundance. You're done.
Yeah, it'll help. Yeah.
um, but yeah, marketing's its own animal. I'm not a marketing producer. Um, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, and my two weaknesses are actually I'm learning a lot on marketing. I'm actually doing pretty well for Shadow of the Mind right now, but it's a learning experience. My biggest weakness is audio, but we don't have to talk about that. I'm a musician, and I'm bad at audio controls. Whatever.
That's funny. So I know you mentioned funding.
Yes.
So I really want to get into funding because I think as anyone being an aspiring filmmaker, script writer, things of that nature, you're just like, man, how am I gonna make this movie? I don't have the money. So let's say the first question, give me 3 ways to fund a movie when you have no money in your pocket.
You could go the traditional route of investors and producers. There's multiple avenues to go about that. I'll just list them off, and then we can break down each one individually if you want. You can go the more modern route, which is crowdfunding, but that has its own problems as well. And there's the non-traditional route, which you can only do this if you're in a lower budget. You could take out a personal loan, but that's that's high risk. Just because if your movie doesn't do well, and you're stuck with a $20,000 loan over this crappy movie nobody's watching, just be ready for that one, guys.
Yeah.
That's a route I personally do not recommend, but that's just because I hate debt.
Right.
It's a thing, and like I I'm confident in all my films, but I'm not confident in any of them making back that 20K plus interest
Right.
fast enough for me to pay off the loan, because the loan payments start the next month. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. They want their money. They want theirs like
They
ASAP.
want it. They want it now.
Yeah.
Um, so traditional funding. What I meant by that was film investors and producers. There's multiple ways you can find them. Facebook, if you're an aspiring filmmaker, I know a lot of people think Facebook sucks or stupid or social media is the devil or whatever, but like Facebook is Facebook is everything for an artist. You got your Instagram. Instagram's great. You can't contact investors through Instagram. I mean, you might be able to, but that's like if you have 15,000 followers or whatever. If you're an aspiring artist, you probably have like 100. Because you're aspiring. You're not there yet. Facebook, there's groups that you can join. Casper, you and I are in a bunch of them. Like in Illinois, I would say all three of the Chicago groups: Southern Illinois, Northern Illinois, Central Illinois, Champaign, Peoria. Midwest filmmakers branch out into Indiana, Michigan, Missouri, Kentucky. Like, try to get in as many possible. There's international low budget, there's North American, there's a bunch of other things. Like, even go into Canadian groups, British groups, like whatever. That's just not just for investors. That's for every
Every
connection you can.
part of it, really.
Every part.
And
Every part. I
in the
met
film industry.
I met Casper over Facebook.
Yeah, that's
I yeah, I met Ruben over Facebook. I met almost 90% of the people I work with over Facebook. And this might as well just be an ad campaign for Facebook at this point. But
I mean, it's on Facebook Live.
there you go. But you can just go out and be like, hey, don't be too wordy. I'll tell you exactly what to do. Hello, my name is Clinton Robinson. I'm an aspiring director for a film I have an idea of. Here is my log line. I'm seeking investors. Do that, and you might not get a bite. You might not get a bite for a while, but if you post that every now and then, you could get a bite. And it might not be somebody that'll fund, say you're asking for 50K. They're like, hey, is there any way you can do it for 20,000? Your answer is yes. You will find a way, even if you have to contact all your people and be like, hey, we need to make a pay cut or else we can't make the film at all. Or you can say yes and then try to get a second bite, because the producer's just like, I'll give you this money when you're ready to film. That's what they do.
Right.
So you can do that. There's Stage 32 and Slated, which are websites that I use that you can find investors, crew members, and stuff like that as well. You can even pitch to some people. Now, pitching's difficult, and the fact that this is pitching over the internet makes it even more difficult. I think the success rate is like 5% on there, which, that doesn't sound like a lot, but considering there's like millions of filmmakers around the world trying to pitch, that's 10 million people, 5% make it. That's a pretty good number. I'm not going to do the math. I think that's like 500,000. But,
I'm going to let you jumble that up a little bit.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll let them fix that in post.
Fix it in post.
But so that's your traditional route. I mean, you could go the route of getting a talent manager and this and that, but they're not going to take you on for your first project. You got to have some credits built up for them to take you on at anything. And then they'll do the work of getting you in the room, and then you have to pitch, which pitching, you're going to need a pitch deck, you're going to need your log line, you're going to need a bunch of stuff. You're going to even need to prove how they can make the money, prove the market needs that film, your audience. So it's not a world where you just make a money, take it to Netflix's admissions office and be like, here's my movie, take it. You know what I mean? It's a lot of boring stuff. And that's important because A, it funnels out the people who don't want to do it, and B, make sure that quality content gets created and made.
Right.
Because it might not be that you have a bad idea. They're just going to be like, hey, go flesh this stuff out and come back. Because you can get those. And it's a valuable learning experience going through that process anyways. This is kind of point 1B. You can also take it through the film festival circuit to get it picked up. Do a proof of concept. If you have a feature-length film and you're like, it's going to cost me $500,000, there's no way in hell I'm going to make it, do a proof of concept short, just like a 5-minute short, that it doesn't have to be like the full idea, but just like a snippet of that idea of yours, and see if you don't have people that can help you make this for free or low budget, or right in the contract, if it gets picked up to be fully funded, they get to work on the project as it's fully funded. Do that, and you can use that proof of concept to A, get into festival circuits, and B, use that in your pitch meetings as well, because it's like, hey, I put my own money into 5 minutes of this project, fund me the 2 hours of it, which is something I did for 2 short films that I'm using as a proof of concept for 1 full film. The Scratching and the Searching. There's a reason that they sound so similar. The second way would be crowdfunding, which that's risky, and that you're not guaranteed you're going to get all the money you want. And that has its own thing. We're doing this for Shadow of the Mind. You have to become a marketer. You have to be able to market your product, stay on pushing it. I make a post once every 3 days about the project on my Facebook. I invite people. I grow the community. And I'm not going to give my secrets out for free, but there's ways to do it. And with that, instead of where you're trying to build the budget originally, where it's all just you and maybe one other person, with crowdfunding, you need to build your cast, you need to build your crew, you need to get, promos made. You need to get a poster made, which you'd think that sounds ridiculous, but a poster is a big deal. The poster for Shadow of the Mind is amazing. It gives away kind of the feel of the movie, but you don't want to give the movie away.
Right.
And then you have to find out where you want to crowdfund. Do you want to go through Indiegogo? Do you want to go through Kickstarter, Seed and Spark? Like, do you want to just create like I don't know, a GoFundMe campaign? And like each one has its pluses and minuses. I'd recommend learning their algorithm so you know how to get onto the home page as fast as possible. Because if it's just not on the homepage, you're going to just get buried.
That's
Um,
interesting, man, to even think about. Just because, like me being into marketing for social media, just thinking about the algorithm idea for getting on a homepage for something like crowdfunding. That's
yeah,
very interesting. I mean, it's something that I've never thought about because haven't really interacted with a lot of crowdfunding situations.
yeah.
So you just taught me something for sure.
Oh yeah, that's why I picked Indiegogo because that's the algorithm I learned.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, not going to give it away. As much as I want to sit here and help people, you also need to learn this if you're going to be in the industry. You have to learn that you can tell people how you do things without telling them how to do it. Because you are a product, and it's almost as if Coke was trying to help Pepsi. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I want to see everyone succeed, but at the same time, I also have to make sure I can eat.
Right.
But like Casper, I'll tell you how to do it because we're friends. But I'm also
Right.
teaching people that might be my competition leader, which I love competition. And I'll help you out and I'm gonna help you succeed. But I won't tell you how to do everything. I'll give you 90% of it. The other 10% is yours. Which
So
holding
going
people
into going
going
into
in.
that, that's funny. Going into that, I guess because I come from the music world, it's all about competition. You know, a lot
Yeah,
of people are very competitive. Like I'm personally not a competitive artist. I enjoy just creating, and I feel like I'm not. I don't have to outshine the next person to be great. Um,
right.
but I know I feel like when I transitioned into the film industry, I noticed a lot more collaborative efforts.
Yeah.
It's still competitive, but it's a lot more collaborative. So I guess I ask you like, how do you as a director go on someone else's set and play a different role or whatever, whether it's cast or crew, and not want to say but not want to direct or not want to say, "Hey, this could be dope in the script." How do you control yourself
I've,
within that?
I've always been a team player. In the sense that like I want everyone to succeed. And it's funny you say that because, like I said earlier, I collaborate a lot with Ruben Ramirez and Dan Johnson, and they're both directors, and they're both have other roles, and it's gotten to the point where it's natural. We've been on each other's sets so much that I know like, okay, I'm a little stronger in this subject, so when it comes to this specific subject, like between the three of us, I'm the best at lighting. Like I don't know why, I'm just really good at lighting. So I'll make sure that I focus on that aspect. And you have to learn when you're on set everybody's strengths and weaknesses because you got to pick up slack here and there. And especially in the indie industry because there's a lot more blurred lines between certain jobs. Whereas like you get into Hollywood, it's like no, Gaffer only does this, Grip only does that, and that's
Yeah,
because of union
big budget
contracts.
stuff.
Yeah, union contracts and things like that nature. Um, but it's almost a sense of respect for a director to let the director do their thing.
Right.
And like there's times I've bitten my tongue because I as a director wouldn't do this, but this is their creative vision and I don't want them to come on my set and be like you're doing that wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because even if they don't say that, even if I didn't say that, that's what it would come across when I say, "Don't you think they should do this?"
Yeah.
Or don't you think we should do this? Because A, they don't think that because they didn't do that. You're just you're just politely saying, hey, this is my turf now. Um, I do I've noticed that I give off like a sense that I'm the director on whatever set I walk onto. Because people come to me with questions before they go to the other directors, but I will always just say, have you asked the director, or do you want me to ask the director for you? Even though I know what my answer would be, I go on there and I tell them, hey, this person needs to know this. What do you want me to tell them? And normally they'll go and tell the person themselves because that's me being respectful and not stepping on their toes. Are there times I want to say something? Yes.
Probably all the time, huh?
All the time. I still haven't yet, and I think that's remarkable. But I just think I don't know the film industry. It's not like there's not a feature. Like it's not like on a rap album where it's like featuring CHISongwriter. It's everybody has their specific place in the credits. You know what I mean? It's always director Ruben Ramirez, assistant director Clint Robinson. So I'm getting recognition for my part no matter what because it's right there. It's not a parentheses. It's
Right.
by itself. And that's how I think about it. It's a team experience, it's collaborative storytelling. It's I always go back to like originally stories were just told by one person over a campfire, and we're at the point where a story's told by upwards of 1,000 people on a TV screen. So each of us has our role to play to tell that story.
100. 100. Yeah. I was just listening and just thinking about everything you were saying, trying to take it in. Yeah, because I know that it's just like one of those things that when you are in a position or you have done a certain thing for however long, you sometimes feel like, oh, I should say something. And I do think it's very respectful for a person to, I don't want to, for lack of a better term, stay in your place.
Oh yeah, stay in your lane.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I think. I
yeah.
tell myself when I bite my tongue, I'm like, Clint, stay in your lane.
Exactly. So it's like, because if I was directing something and you come up to me and say, oh, well, I think I'm going to take it as like, well, you don't respect my opinion or you don't think. Now it's different because most good directors, and I think any talented person, most of the time they have no problem with asking, hey, what do you think? If they really have a question about it, they're going to ask.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Like the director will ask me something, and I'll give my opinion right away because it's already on my mind.
And that's when it's needed, though.
Yeah, if they're not asking, you're just butting in, and you're honestly probably confusing them at that point. Because I know if somebody butted in, when I'm a director, I have a million things going through my mind at once. I'm trying to figure out exactly where everything is. If you come in there and tell me, "Hey, do you think that light should be moved a little bit?" Now you just added another problem that I'm going to second guess myself on.
Yeah, because you're already thinking whatever 100 things you have on.
Yeah, I'm already worrying about making sure we get to eat on time. Already, like the director's not just worrying about what's going on set. They're worrying about 5 scenes from now. They're worrying about do we have time for a break? When can we have break? Are we going to get done on time? Do I have to film out of the order I wanted to so somebody can get home on time to feed their cat? You know, like just stuff like that you don't even think the director's thinking that, but I assure you, they are thinking all of that.
It's a big hat. I mean, it's just like it's a management job.
Oh yeah, it's not just management; it's executive management.
It's executive management. It's general manager. So, last question, and we can dig into it however you want. I want to get into the writing side, as you are a writer. What do you think is the most important aspect of a script?
Can I say all of it? Can I take that cop out?
You can cop out, but also I really want to see. And now, obviously, they're all equally important. So let's get that out there. Let's get that out there. It's all equally important.
It's all equally important. And the reason I'm saying all of it, and I'll break it down. Every story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
If you don't have that, you don't have a full story. You have part of a story, or a subsection of a story at the most. So having a definitive first act, second act, third act, beginning, middle, end, whatever you want to call it, is important. And you're like, oh, what about movie series? Well, I can guarantee you the Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone has a beginning, middle, and end. Prisoner of Azkaban has a beginning, middle, and end. And I know I went out of order. Like each of those have a beginning, middle, and end, but they're also a collective beginning, middle, and end as well.
Right.
Um,
That's just great. That's just good writing. That's just
yeah,
writing.
you need to have that. Character growth is so important, and people forget to have it. It's not just the main character that needs to have a character arc. Every character should have a character arc, no matter how small. Your protagonist needs one, your antagonist needs one, your supporting characters need one, because if not every character has an arc, I don't care about the character. As a viewer, I do not care about the character,
Right.
and that's the most important thing. And a lot of people try to worry so much about other things. So many horror movies are a failure because you don't care about certain characters because they don't have that arc. Even a villain needs to have an arc, and that's why a lot of movies fail, because it's just a two-dimensional villain that's just twirling the mustache and being evil. Um,
You want to know you want to create characters that make you want to know the story every
exactly.
person.
And I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'm really good at that part of writing, and that's why I think it's so important. Is that character arc for each character. Even your character in Shadow of the Mind, all 3 pages of him up until the edit still had a minor arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the villains in my story and the heroes and the minor characters and major characters, everybody had that growth or degeneration of an arc, and that's why I don't use the word character growth, because an arc can also be a degenerative thing where the character goes from up here to down there. You need to have your character seem human, no matter how much they're on screen. And people think that means dialogue, and it doesn't. I mean, dialogue's part of it, but it needs to be like, what's that character's sub story?
Right.
Writing characters as human, not meaning that they're a human character, but meaning they have emotional layers, complexity, and personality. Um, and a good story, honestly, like so many people just write to write, and then it comes off as like just writing to write. And this goes to major Hollywood films as well that have become like that, where the story's been done before, beaten to death a million times, and brought back to life to be beaten to death again. Don't fall into tropes. Like, don't do stuff that's been done so much that everybody's like, every character's like that. Like, there's that time where the blonde was always the dumb one. You know what I mean? Like why is it like that? You don't fall into tropes, because that's just lazy writing.
Creating these stereotypes. Like
Yeah,
art. Is it art imitating life or life imitating art? That's
exactly.
the
And
vibe.
you need to imitate life, and sometimes that means just like writing real people. That, I guess that's my biggest thing, is just having characters and having a growth, because I don't care what your story is. I do a little bit, I just said it's important, but if your characters are human and have a reason to care about what they're doing, why they're there, who they are, and why I should care if they succeed or fail. And that's the most important thing. If your characters don't work, you don't have a good film. It doesn't matter if you have the best story, best reasoning behind the story. If your characters are just like two-dimensional cartoons, it's not entertaining.
Right. Yeah. So from what I'm gathering, although you said that there's not all, I gather that it is what seems to be the most important is that character
Oh
uh,
yeah,
development, right? So
all characters.
yeah, all character development. So I guess I did say it was my last question, but this is gonna be the final one. Just a quick little like, do
Okay.
you think? And it's pretty easy answer. You can pick one or the other. There's 3 options. Do you think that um, a great character can lead a bad story and still make a successful film? Or do you think a great story can lead well with bad characters and still be a successful film? Or you can choose, depends.
Hold on, I'm thinking. I'm thinking of how I'm going to say this. because I have an idea in mind, and it's kind of I might lose some fans.
They gotta like who you are, so you gotta speak your truths.
Yeah, it's just okay. So I will die on this hill. Star Wars Episode 8. There's a lot of people hate the new Star Wars movies. Whatever, I don't care. Get out of here. Episode 8, Last Jedi. Luke Skywalker's character arc is amazing because he's basically, and I probably just lost like all my Instagram followers already. So I don't care, nothing to lose. This movie was a bad movie in story and plot, but what saved it for me was his character arc. Because last time we saw him, he was the hero of the galaxy, killed the Empire, saved the Force, all that fun stuff. And he starts off as this damaged hermit that wants nothing to do with the Force, wants nothing to do with the rebellion, wants to be left alone on his little island in the middle of a planet that nobody can find. He goes over the course of this film not only wanting to teach somebody the Force again, but at the end of it, being the hero of the rebellion again. He actually has an entire character arc, even though he's not the main character, he's a secondary character. And that's why I think it saved it for me, for a lot of people, that Star Wars is a touchy one. But I'm so polarized. It's more controversial than politics most of the time. But he had a character arc. He had a full-fledged character arc, redemptive cycle, all of that. Not just redemptive, but coming to himself or realizing himself, all that stuff. And I can probably think of other films if I had time, but I was just asked this on the spot. But I think he saved a bad film. You can't have bad characters and a good film. Terminator Salvation, or no, not Salvation. The recent one, Darkest Fate or whatever. Like, that had a pretty interesting storyline, but all the character arcs and everything were just repetitive of the prior films.
They didn't do anything for you.
Yeah, no. And that's why that, again, just getting into franchises, flop. You can look at movies that, like, if you look at it, there's, like, no real story, and it still worked. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp. That story was, like, there's, like, 3 different stories going on at once. But the character growth between Hank Pym, between Scott Lang, Hope Van Dyne, all of them, like, they had character arcs. Even Luis had a character arc. And that's what saved the film, is the characters, because honestly that was just a heist movie. That was just a standard, typical, it could have been like Ocean's 14. And with that plot, and it would have still worked. The characters are the film. The story in itself, I said this to somebody, I can't remember who. If you take the characters out, the story is only about 10 pages of your script if you have a feature-length film. The characters are the majority of the film. The characters are the audience's eyes into the story. And if you don't have that soul there, you're just looking through blank eyes. It's almost like taking a virtual tour of something with nothing else in front of you. You need the characters there to be able to tell the story.
Great answer. I really appreciate you for coming on, Clinton. If you want to, give everyone where they can find you at, any additional information that you would like to give real quick before I tell you sayonara, you go ahead, man.
All right, so you can follow me on Instagram at R Productions 93. I'm not going to accept friend requests on Facebook, but you can find my production company, R Film Productions LLC. And you can also, if you want to keep up to date on this upcoming feature, Casper and I have talked about a couple times, Paragenic Shadow of the Mind. If you want to follow that on Facebook, that would be amazing. That's SHARAGENEX, Shadow of the Mind. The We're gonna have a promo spot launching here shortly. We're filming it tomorrow. That'll be airing. I'll post it first on the Facebook page and then on YouTube and all that stuff. Um, we're going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign for the film next Friday, actually, February 12th. So, follow the Facebook page and you can find the crowdfunding page. We're still working out the stretch goals. We're still working out, backer prizes or whatever they're called. You'll find that out the day of the Indiegogo campaign launch. Also, you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you'll find out all my casting information whenever productions are happening, because I always seem to have some sort of work going on. Uh, Again, thanks for having me on here, Casper.
It's all love, man. Appreciate it. I'll be in touch, so we'll talk soon.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, you too.
All right. Another great day. I really wanted you guys to get a little bit of information. A lot of people have been reaching out to me about acting and just getting into the film industry. So I hope that that was helpful for you to get a little bit of knowledge. Feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about how we can assist you on, breaking into the industry or improving your brand if you're already in the industry, improving the marketing of your films, things of that nature. I'm here for you, Casper Consulting. That's what the live Q&A is for, to bring you guys information, and that's what we're here for. Um, Thank you guys so much for watching. Clinton Robinson was amazing. We have a lot of things in the works right now. I have a lot of stuff I'm working on. So if you're out there watching, if you ever want to work with me, I'm going to always say, feel free to reach out to me. We'll talk about, figure out what our goals are, what our budget is, like things of that nature, so we can be successful together. So once again, thank you guys for watching Casper Consulting Live Q&A. It will be available on YouTube, this episode. If you want to follow me at youtube.com/CHISongwriter, CHISongwriter, you can catch the other two episodes. We have an entertainment lawyer on. We've had promoters. We have DJs. Like, we bring a lot of different types of people within the entertainment industry. Bless you. We have so make sure you guys are checking that out. And peace and love to you, families, and stay safe in these COVID times.